The dust hung thick in the air as Nathan Irons stumbled into the general store on Main Street, his stomach growling so loud he was certain everyone within 10 feet could hear it. He had exactly 12 cents in his pocket, 3 days of stubble on his jaw, and boots so worn through that he could feel every pebble on the wooden floorboards beneath his feet. It was June of 1882, and Custer, South Dakota, was unforgiving to those without means, without land, without prospects. Nathan had been a cowboy once, working honest days on the McAllister Ranch 15 miles south of town. But when drought hit hard last summer and the cattle started dying off, old man McAllister had to let half his hands go. Nathan was among them, too young at 24 to have built the kind of reputation that made ranchers fight to keep you on. Since then, he had been drifting, picking up odd jobs here and there, sleeping in the hayloft of the livery stable when the owner was feeling charitable, and under the stars when he was not. The general store smelled of coffee beans and leather, flour and tobacco. Nathan approached the counter where Mr. Henderson stood, a portly man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetual frown that seemed carved into his features. "I can sweep out back," Nathan said quietly, hat in his hands, "or stack those crates. Just need enough to buy some bread and maybe a bit of cheese." Mr. Henderson looked him up and down, his expression somewhere between pity and irritation. "Already got someone doing that. You are the third fellow to ask me today, Irons. Times are hard for everyone." Nathan nodded, swallowing his pride along with his disappointment. He turned to leave when the bell above the door chimed, and she walked in. Natalie Zimmerman was not the kind of woman who faded into the background. She wore a simple green dress that had seen better days, but she carried herself with a quiet dignity that made heads turn. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes, a striking shade of hazel, held both intelligence and kindness. She was perhaps 22, Nathan guessed, and she moved through the store with purpose. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice clear and pleasant, "I need flour, sugar, and if you have any fresh eggs, I will take a dozen." "Miss Zimmerman," Henderson replied, his demeanor shifting entirely, becoming almost obsequious. Of course. How is your father managing?" she said, and something flickered across her face, something that looked like worry before she smoothed it away. "The consumption is better some days than others." Nathan found himself standing there, still holding his hat, watching this exchange. He knew he should leave, knew he was just taking up space, but something rooted him to the spot. Natalie pulled out a small leather purse and began counting coins onto the counter. As she did, one slipped from her fingers and rolled across the floor, spinning in that particular way coins do, before settling near Nathan's boot. He bent immediately and picked it up, crossing the space between them in 3 strides. "Madam," he said, holding it out to her. She looked up at him and their eyes met. For a moment neither spoke. Nathan was acutely aware of how he must look, ragged and hungry, probably smelling of the stable where he had spent the night. But Natalie did not wrinkle her nose or step back. Instead, she smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you," she said, taking the coin from his palm. Her fingers brushed his, cool and soft. "That is kind of you." "Just returning what is yours," Nathan replied, feeling his ears grow hot. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an openness that was unusual. Most people in Custer looked through Nathan these days as if poverty were contagious, but Natalie Zimmerman looked at him like he was a person worth seeing. "I have not seen you around before," she said. "Are you new to Custer?" "Been here about 4 months," Nathan admitted. "Used to work at the McAllister Ranch before it went under." Recognition flashed in her eyes. "I heard about that. A lot of good men lost their positions." "Yes, madam." "Natalie," she corrected gently. My name is Natalie. Nathan Irons, he said, and then felt foolish because she had not asked, but she did not seem to think it foolish. It is nice to meet you, Nathan Irons. She turned back to Henderson, who was bagging her purchases with unnecessary slowness, clearly listening to every word. Mr. Henderson, do you know if anyone in town is hiring, looking for ranch work or anything similar? Henderson snorted. Half the men in this county are looking for work, Miss Zimmerman. The other half are heading west to try their luck in the mines. Natalie nodded thoughtfully, then looked back at Nathan. Can you handle a hammer, do basic carpentry? Yes, madam, I mean, Natalie. My father was a carpenter before he passed, taught me what he knew. Our fence is falling down, she said simply. Has been for weeks. My father is too ill to fix it, and I have been trying, but I am not making much progress. If you are willing to work, I can pay you in meals and whatever small amount I can spare. It is not much, but it is something. Nathan felt something expand in his chest, something that had been compressed and tight for months. Hope, maybe, or just the simple human need to be useful, to be wanted for something. I would be grateful for the work, he said, meaning every word. Good. She picked up her bag of purchases. Do you know where the Zimmerman place is? About 2 miles east of town, the house with the blue shutters. I will find it. Come tomorrow morning early, I will have breakfast ready. She paused at the door, looking back at him. And Nathan, thank you. After she left, the store seemed dimmer somehow. Henderson was looking at Nathan with a mixture of surprise and something that might have been approval. She is a good woman, Henderson said gruffly. Taking care of her sick father all alone out there. You treat her with respect, you hear? I intend to, sir, Nathan replied. He walked out of the store into the bright Dakota sunshine, and for the first time in months, the future did not look quite so bleak. That night, Nathan used his last few cents to buy a piece of hard bread and some dried beef from the saloon's back door. He found a spot under a cottonwood tree near the creek and ate slowly, making it last. The stars came out one by one, brilliant and uncountable in the vast prairie sky. He thought about Natalie Zimmerman, about the way she had looked at him without judgment, about the kindness in offering work instead of charity. He had nothing to offer her but his labor and his gratitude. No land, no money, no prospects. But tomorrow he would show her that his word meant something, that he could work hard and do good work. It was a start. The next morning, Nathan woke before dawn, washed his face and hands in the creek, and did his best to make himself presentable. He walked the 2 miles to the Zimmerman place as the sun rose, painting the hills in shades of gold and amber. The house came into view, a modest wooden structure with those distinctive blue shutters Natalie had mentioned. The fence she had spoken of was indeed in poor shape, rails sagging and posts leaning at odd angles. Nathan was examining the fence, trying to assess what materials he would need, when the front door opened and Natalie emerged. She had on a different dress today, blue calico with a white apron over it, and her hair was in a long braid down her back. You came, she said, and he detected genuine relief in her voice, as if she had not been entirely sure he would. Said I would, Nathan replied. Come inside first. Breakfast is ready. The interior of the house was clean and simply furnished. A fire crackled in the stove, and the smell of frying bacon made Nathan's stomach clench with hunger. A thin man with gray hair and hollow cheeks sat in a rocking chair near the window, a blanket over his lap despite the warmth of the morning. His breathing was audible, a slight wheeze on each exhale. Papa, this is Nathan Irons. He's going to help with the fence. Nathan, this is my father, William Zimmerman. William extended a bony hand and Nathan shook it gently. The older man's grip was weak, but his eyes were sharp and assessing. Good to meet you, son. William said, his voice thin but steady. "My daughter tells me you are handy with carpentry." "I will do my best, sir. That is all any man can promise." Natalie gestured to the table, which was set for three. Nathan hesitated, feeling suddenly awkward and out of place. But Natalie pulled out a chair and looked at him expectantly, so he sat. The meal was simple but generous. Bacon, eggs, fresh bread with butter, and strong coffee. Nathan tried to eat slowly, to maintain some dignity, but it had been so long since he had eaten a proper meal that it was difficult. Natalie seemed to understand and kept refilling his plate without comment or fuss. "The fence needs new posts in several places," Nathan said between bites, "and all the rails need to be resecured. Some of the wood is rotted through and will need replacing entirely." "We have some lumber in the barn," Natalie said. "It might not be enough, but use what is there. I can try to buy more if needed." "I will make do with what there is," Nathan assured her. After breakfast, Natalie showed him to the barn, which was small but well organized. There was indeed lumber there, along with a decent collection of tools. Nathan selected what he needed and got to work. The day was hot, the sun beating down mercilessly as he dug out old fence posts and set new ones. It was hard physical labor, but Nathan welcomed it. His muscles, unused to sustained work after months of occasional odd jobs, protested at first but gradually remembered their purpose. Sweat soaked through his shirt, and his hands blistered where the shovel handle rubbed, but he kept working. Around midday, Natalie brought him water and a plate of cold chicken and bread. She had a bonnet on now to protect her face from the sun. "You have made good progress," she observed, looking at the section of fence he had already repaired. "It is good work," Nathan said, drinking deeply from the water jug. "Feels good to be useful." "You say that like you have not been useful in a while." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "Hard times make it hard to find work. A lot of men better than me are in the same position." "I doubt that," Natalie said quietly. She sat down on an overturned bucket, apparently in no hurry to return to the house. "You know, when I dropped that coin yesterday, I watched you. You could have just kicked it toward me or ignored it entirely, but you picked it up and brought it to me like it mattered. It did matter. It was yours." "Exactly." She smiled at him, that same warm smile from yesterday. "Small things tell you about a person's character. You are honest." That is not as common as it should be. Nathan did not know what to say to that. He ate his lunch in silence, aware of her presence beside him, comfortable in a way that surprised him. "Can I ask you something?" Natalie said after a while. "Yes, madam." "Why did you stay in Custer?" "Most men in your position move on, try somewhere else." Nathan considered the question. "I guess I kept hoping something would turn up, and it did, so I suppose I was right to stay." "I am glad you stayed," Natalie said, and then seemed to realize how that might sound because she added quickly, "I mean, because now the fence will get fixed." "I know what you meant," Nathan said, but he was smiling. She stood up, brushing dust from her skirt. "I should get back to Papa. He needs his medicine at 2 o'clock, and he will insist he does not if I am not there to make sure he takes it." "How long has he been sick?" Nathan asked. 2 years. It got bad last winter. The doctor says consumption usually takes people within months, but Papa is stubborn. He is holding on." Her voice wavered slightly on the last words. "He is lucky to have you taking care of him." "I am lucky to have him at all," she replied. "He is all the family I have left." Nathan wanted to say something comforting, something meaningful, but words failed him. So instead he just nodded, and Natalie seemed to understand. She walked back to the house, and Nathan returned to his work. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan came to the Zimmerman place every day. The fence repair expanded into other projects. A loose shutter that needed rehanging, a leak in the barn roof, a chicken coop that required reinforcing against predators. Natalie always had breakfast ready when he arrived, and sent him home in the evenings with a full stomach, and sometimes a small parcel of food for later. But more than the meals, more than the sense of purpose the work gave him, Nathan found himself looking forward to the moments he spent talking with Natalie. She would come out during the day with water or food, and they would talk about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Custer, about her mother who had died when Natalie was 16, about her dreams of maybe teaching school someday if circumstances allowed. He told her about his own childhood, moving from town to town as his father sought work, about learning to ride and rope on various ranches, about the feeling of freedom that came with working under the open sky. They discovered they were both readers, a relative rarity on the frontier where books were precious and hard to come by. Natalie lent him a copy of Ivanhoe that had belonged to her mother, and Nathan read it at night by lamplight in the livery stable, treasuring it as much for the fact that Natalie had shared it with him as for the story itself. One evening, as the sun was setting and Nathan was putting away his tools, William called him over. The old man was sitting on the porch, wrapped in his blanket despite the lingering heat of the day. "Sit with me a moment, son," William said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Nathan sat, wondering if he had done something wrong, if William was unhappy with his work or his presence. "You are a good worker," William said, as if reading his thoughts. "But more than that, you are a good man. I have been watching you these past weeks." "Thank you, sir." "My Natalie is a special woman," William continued, his voice taking on a serious tone. "She has given up a lot to take care of me. Could have married Jim Patterson, who runs the feed store, or that banker's son from Rapid City who came courting 2 years back. But she stayed here, stayed with me." Nathan did not know what to say, so he remained silent. "I am dying," William said bluntly. "Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon. And when I go, Natalie will be alone. That worries me more than dying itself." "She is strong," Nathan offered, "and smart. She will manage." "I know she will." "But managing is not the same as living, is it?" William turned to look at him directly. "You care about her. Do not try to deny it. I can see it plain as day." Nathan felt his face grow hot. "I do," he admitted. "But, sir, I have nothing to offer her. I am a drifter with no money, no land, no future to speak of. She deserves better than that." "She deserves a man with a good heart," William said firmly. "Everything else can be built. Land can be acquired, money can be earned. But character, that is something a man either has or does not have." "You have it, Nathan Irons. I do not know what to say. Do not say anything yet. Just think about what I have said, and know that if you and Natalie find your way to each other, you will have my blessing." William stood up slowly, leaning on the porch rail. "Now go on home before it gets full dark. And Nathan, thank you for everything you have done here. You have helped more than you know." Nathan walked back to town that night with his head spinning. The idea that William Zimmerman approved of him, that he saw something worthwhile in a down-on-his-luck cowboy, was almost overwhelming. But even more overwhelming was the possibility, however remote, that Natalie might feel the same way he did. Because somewhere over the past 2 weeks, Nathan had fallen in love with her. It was not something he had planned or expected. It had crept up on him in small moments. The way she laughed at something he said, the way she checked on her father with such tenderness, the way she looked at the sunset with wonder even after seeing thousands of them. She was kind and strong and beautiful, and Nathan knew with absolute certainty that he would never meet another woman like her. But what could he possibly offer her? He owned nothing but the clothes on his back and a worn saddle in the livery stable. He had no home, no steady income, no prospects. The 12 cents he had started with, had grown to a few dollars thanks to Natalie's generosity, but that was hardly enough to build a life on. These thoughts plagued him over the next few days. He continued working at the Zimmerman place, continued sharing meals and conversation with Natalie. But now, there was an added weight to every interaction. He found himself noticing things he had tried not to notice before. The way her eyes lit up when she smiled, the graceful movement of her hands as she worked, the sound of her voice saying his name. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after he had started working there, Nathan was repairing the chicken coop when he heard raised voices from the house. He looked up to see a well-dressed man in a fine suit and expensive boots standing on the porch, talking to Natalie. Even from a distance, Nathan could see that Natalie's posture was stiff, defensive. He should mind his own business, he knew. But something in the man's aggressive stance made Nathan set down his hammer and walk closer, not approaching but staying within earshot in case Natalie needed help. "You are being foolish, Natalie," the man was saying. "Your father is dying, anyone can see that. You cannot run this place alone." "I am managing just fine," Natalie replied, her voice cold. "Are you? I see you have hired some drifter to do work around here. How are you paying him?" "You cannot have much money left." "That is none of your concern, Clayton." So this was Clayton, Nathan thought, the banker's son from Rapid City that William had mentioned. "It is my concern when I have made you a perfectly reasonable offer," Clayton pressed. "Marry me, and you will never have to worry about money again. Your father can have the best doctors, you can have a real home in the city, servants to help you. Why are you being so stubborn?" "Because I do not love you," Natalie said flatly. "I have told you this before, Clayton." "My answer has not changed. Love is a luxury, Natalie. Practicality is what matters. You are not going to get a better offer, not out here in the middle of nowhere with a dying father and no prospects." Nathan saw Natalie's hands clench into fists at her sides. He started forward, unable to stop himself, but before he could reach the porch, Natalie spoke again, her voice ringing with anger. "Get off my property, Clayton. Now. You are making a mistake. The only mistake I made was not throwing you out sooner. Leave." Clayton noticed Nathan approaching and sneered. "This is what you are choosing. A penniless cowboy who probably sleeps in the dirt. You are more foolish than I thought. Leave," Natalie repeated, and this time there was steel in her voice. Clayton shook his head in disgust and stalked off toward his horse, which was tied near the gate. He mounted up and rode away without looking back. Nathan reached the porch where Natalie stood, her arms wrapped around herself, breathing hard. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "I am fine. Just angry." She looked at him, and some of the tension left her shoulders. "Thank you for coming over. I could handle him, but it was nice to know someone was there." He seemed pretty insistent. Clayton Harwood does not understand the word no. His father owns the bank in Rapid City, and he is used to getting what he wants. She sighed. "I danced with him at a church social 2 years ago, and he decided that meant we were destined to be married. No matter how many times I refuse him, he keeps coming back with the same offer." "He is not wrong about one thing," Nathan said, even though the words hurt to speak. "You do deserve security, a good home, someone who can provide for you." Natalie turned to face him fully, her hazel eyes intense. "What I deserve is someone who sees me as a person, not a problem to be solved or a possession to be acquired. What I deserve is someone who is kind and honest and good." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Someone like you." Nathan's heart hammered in his chest. "Natalie, I have nothing to offer you. Nothing. I am exactly what Clayton said, a penniless cowboy who has been sleeping in a stable. Do you think I care about that?" She stepped closer to him. "Nathan, these past few weeks, you have shown up every single day. You have worked hard, treated my father with respect, treated me with respect. You have been honest and kind and good. That is what matters. That is what I care about. But that does not put food on the table or a roof over your head, Nathan protested, even as every fiber of his being wanted to believe what she was saying. We will figure that out together, Natalie said. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers threading through his. I do not need wealth, Nathan. I do not need fancy things or a big house in the city. I just need someone with a good heart who will stand beside me. Can you do that? Nathan looked down at their joined hands, at this remarkable woman who was offering him everything he had ever wanted but never dared to hope for. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. Because once I say yes, I am not going anywhere. I will stand beside you through whatever comes, I promise you that. That is all I need to hear. She smiled up at him, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. I am sure, Nathan. I have never been more sure of anything. He pulled her close then, wrapping his arms around her, and she came willingly, resting her head against his chest. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the golden afternoon light, and Nathan felt something settle into place in his soul. This was where he was meant to be. This was home. From inside the house they heard William's voice, weak but tinged with amusement. About time you two figured that out. They broke apart, both laughing, and Natalie's cheeks were flushed pink. We should go tell him properly, she said. Inside, William was sitting in his chair, looking frailer than ever but with a smile on his face that made him seem younger. Well, he said, are you going to make an honest woman of my daughter, Nathan? If she will have me, sir, Nathan replied. Though I should tell you, I have exactly $4.30 to my name, no land, and no prospects beyond maybe finding ranch work again someday. I cannot give her the life she deserves. Can you love her? William asked simply, with everything I have. Can you be faithful to her, respect her, stand by her in hard times, always? Then you have everything that matters. William gestured them closer. Come here, both of you. They knelt beside his chair, and William placed one thin hand on each of their heads like a blessing. You have my permission and my blessing. Make a good life together. Be happy. Thank you, Papa, Natalie whispered, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, sir, Nathan added, his own throat tight. That evening, as Nathan prepared to walk back to town, Natalie stopped him at the door. You do not have to sleep in the stable anymore, she said. The barn here has a good loft, clean and dry. You could stay there. It would be more convenient for the work anyway. Nathan understood what she was really saying, that he was part of this place now, part of this family, such as it was. Are you sure? People might talk. Let them talk. We are going to be married, are we not? We are, Nathan confirmed, and saying it out loud made it feel real in a way it had not before. Then it is settled. I will bring out some blankets and a pillow. It is not much, but it is better than a stable in town. It was indeed better than the stable, but more than that. It was the first time in years that Nathan had felt like he belonged somewhere. He lay in the barn loft that night, listening to the horses moving in their stalls below, and thought about how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. He had come to Custer with nothing and no hope, and now he had everything that mattered. The next morning, Nathan woke to find Natalie in the barn, feeding the horses. Dawn light filtered through the cracks in the walls, turning everything golden. Good morning, she said, smiling up at him as he climbed down from the loft. I thought we should talk about practical matters. All right, Nathan said, splashing water on his face from the bucket by the door. We need to find you regular work, Natalie said. The projects around here will not last forever, and we need a steady income. I have been thinking, maybe you could talk to Mr. Carlson at the livery stable. He is getting older, and I know he has been looking for someone reliable to help him." "I can do that," Nathan agreed. "And I heard yesterday that the railroad is hiring men to lay track west of here. It is hard work, but it pays well." "But it would mean you being gone for weeks at a time," Natalie said, and he could hear the concern in her voice. "Then the livery stable is a better option," Nathan said. He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "I am not leaving you, Natalie. Whatever work I find, it will be close enough that I can come home every night." "Home," she repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." They went into the house together for breakfast, and Nathan noticed that William was having one of his bad days. The older man could barely eat, and his breathing was labored. Natalie tended to him with practiced care, helping him take his medicine, adjusting his blankets, speaking to him in soothing tones. "I should fetch the doctor," Nathan said quietly. "He was here yesterday," Natalie replied, her voice tight. "He said there is nothing more to be done. Just keep him comfortable." Nathan felt helpless watching her care for her dying father, wishing there was something he could do to ease either of their suffering. But all he could do was be there, a steady presence, helping where he could. Over the next few days, William grew weaker. He slept most of the time, and when he was awake, he was often confused, calling for Natalie's mother, talking about people and places from long ago. Natalie sat with him constantly, and Nathan brought her meals, held her when she cried, and took care of everything else that needed doing around the property. On a quiet Tuesday morning, with the sun streaming through the windows and birds singing outside, William Zimmerman died peacefully in his sleep. Natalie was holding his hand, and Nathan was standing behind her, his hands on her shoulders. When William took his last breath and did not take another, Natalie made a small sound, something between a sob and a sigh, and turned into Nathan's arms. "He is at peace now," Nathan murmured, holding her as she wept. "He is not suffering anymore." "I know," Natalie said through her tears. "I know, but I am going to miss him so much." They buried William Zimmerman 2 days later in the cemetery on the hill overlooking Custer. The whole town turned out for the funeral, testament to the respect people had for the Zimmerman family. Reverend Matthews spoke kind words about William's life, his dedication to his daughter, his service to the community as a blacksmith before illness forced him to retire. Clayton Harwood showed up, standing at the back of the crowd, and Nathan watched him carefully. But the banker's son did nothing inappropriate, merely paid his respects and left without approaching Natalie. After the funeral, back at the house that now seemed too quiet and too empty, Natalie sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. "What do I do now?" she asked, not really expecting an answer. "My whole life for the past 2 years has been taking care of him, and now he is gone, and I do not know what comes next." Nathan sat down beside her, taking her hand. "Now we build our life together. We get married, we find our way, we make him proud." "I want to marry you right away," Natalie said suddenly, looking at him with red-rimmed eyes. "I do not want a big ceremony or a fuss. I just want to be your wife and start our life together. Is that all right?" "That is more than all right," Nathan assured her. "Whatever you want, whenever you want it." "Tomorrow," Natalie decided. "Let us go to Reverend Matthews tomorrow and ask him to marry us, just us and whatever witnesses he requires." And so the next day, Nathan Irons married Natalie Zimmerman in a simple ceremony in the church, with Mr. Henderson from the general store and Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house serving as witnesses. Nathan wore his cleanest shirt and had spent his few remaining dollars on a small gold band for Natalie's finger. She wore her mother's wedding dress, which she had altered to fit, and carried wildflowers that Nathan had picked that morning. When Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Natalie gently, and she kissed him back with a warmth and certainty that made his heart soar. They were married, they were together, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. The reality of their situation, however, soon became clear. The Zimmerman house had a mortgage that Natalie had been struggling to pay even before her father died. Nathan found work at the livery stable, just as Natalie had suggested, and Mr. Carlson was indeed happy to hire him. The pay was modest but steady. Natalie took in sewing and mending, her neat stitches and quick work earning her a reputation. But even with both of them working, money was tight. One evening, about 2 weeks after the wedding, they sat at the kitchen table going over their finances. The numbers did not look good. "We are short," Natalie said, running her finger down the column of figures. "Even if we pay everything else, we will be $20 short on the mortgage payment." "I can ask Mr. Carlson for an advance," Nathan suggested. "You just started working there." "We cannot ask for favors so soon." "Then what do we do?" Natalie was quiet for a moment, then said, "I could sell my mother's jewelry. There is a brooch and a pair of earrings. They are not worth a fortune, but they might get us enough." "Natalie, no," Nathan said firmly. "Those are precious to you. They are all you have of your mother." "And this house is all I have of my father," Natalie replied, her voice breaking slightly. "I cannot lose it, Nathan, I cannot." Nathan reached across the table and took both her hands in his. "Listen to me. We are not selling your mother's jewelry. We are not losing this house. I will figure something out. How? We have already cut back on everything we can. I will find extra work. Night work, weekend work, anything. I promise you we will find a way," and Nathan kept that promise. He took on every extra job he could find, working at the livery stable during the day and doing odd jobs in the evenings and on Sundays. He repaired wagons for travelers passing through, helped neighboring ranchers with fencing and branding, did whatever was asked of him no matter how hard or dirty the work. Some nights he came home so exhausted he could barely stand, but Natalie was always there with a hot meal and a warm smile and words of encouragement that kept him going. Slowly, painfully, they began to get ahead. The mortgage was paid on time. They ate simple meals, but they ate. The house stayed warm through the increasingly cold autumn nights. And more importantly, they had each other. One particularly cold evening in October, Nathan came home to find Natalie sitting by the fire, her sewing basket beside her but her hands idle in her lap. She looked up as he entered, and there was something in her expression he could not quite read. "Are you all right?" he asked, crossing to her immediately. "Sit down," she said, patting the chair beside her. "I have something to tell you." Nathan sat, worry prickling at the back of his neck. "What is it? What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Natalie said, and now he could see that she was smiling, a small secret smile. "Nathan, I am going to have a baby." For a moment, Nathan could not process what she had said. Then understanding flooded through him, followed by a joy so intense it took his breath away. "A baby," he repeated. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Natalie confirmed, laughing at his expression. "I have been suspecting for a few weeks, but I wanted to be sure before I told you. Mrs. Patterson confirmed it today. I am about 3 months along. The baby should come in early May." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her close, almost afraid to breathe for fear he would break the magic of this moment. "A baby," he said again, his voice muffled against her hair. "Natalie, this is wonderful. This is the best news in the world." But even as he said it, a cold thread of fear wound through his joy. A baby meant more expenses, more responsibility. How would they manage? Natalie seemed to read his thoughts. "We will be all right," she said. "We have managed this far, have we not? And now we have even more reason to keep fighting." "I am going to take care of you," Nathan promised. "Both of you. I am going to work harder, find more jobs, do whatever it takes. I know you will, but Nathan, you cannot work yourself to death. I need you healthy and whole, not exhausted and broken down. I will be careful, Nathan assured her, but I am not letting my family go without. Not ever. As winter set in, Nathan redoubled his efforts to earn money. The coming baby was a constant presence in his mind, driving him to work harder than he ever had. He insulated the house against the cold, chopped enough firewood to last them through the harshest months, and made sure Natalie had enough to eat even if it meant he went with less. Natalie continued her sewing work as long as she could, but as her pregnancy progressed, she had to slow down. Some of the more prominent ladies in town commissioned her to make baby clothes and blankets, which helped with income while also providing things they would need for their own child. Christmas came, their first as a married couple. They had little money for gifts, but Nathan carved Natalie a beautiful wooden box for her sewing supplies, working on it in secret whenever he had a spare moment. Natalie knitted him a warm scarf and new gloves. Knowing how cold he got working at the stable on Christmas morning, they sat together by the fire, exchanging their modest gifts, and Nathan felt richer than any banker or railroad baron. He had a wife he loved, a baby on the way, and a home, however humble. That was wealth beyond measure. I have one more gift for you, Natalie said, pulling out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. I was going to wait until the baby was born, but I think you should have it now. Nathan unwrapped the bundle to find a small leather journal and a pencil. What is this for? For writing down our story, Natalie explained. I want our child to know where we came from, how we met, how much we love each other, and I want you to write it in your own words. You tell stories beautifully, Nathan. This family should have its history preserved. Nathan was deeply touched. That night, by lamplight, he opened the journal to the first page and wrote, "This is the story of Nathan Irons and Natalie Zimmerman, and how two people with nothing built everything that mattered." The winter was hard, with bitter cold and heavy snows that made work scarce and travel difficult. There were days when Nathan worried they would not make it through, when the money ran out and the food stores dwindled and the cold seemed relentless. But they survived, leaning on each other, finding strength in their love. Natalie's belly grew round with their child, and Nathan found himself talking to the baby even though it had not yet been born. He would put his hand on Natalie's stomach and feel the child kick, and it filled him with wonder and terror in equal measure. This tiny person was depending on them, trusting them to provide and protect. It was a responsibility that weighed on Nathan constantly. In March, as the snows finally began to melt and the first hints of spring appeared, Nathan was approached by a man named James Thornton. Thornton owned a ranch about 30 miles north of Custer and had heard through the grapevine that Nathan was a hard worker and good with horses. "I need a foreman," Thornton said without preamble. "My current man is retiring, moving east to live with his daughter. The job is yours if you want it. Decent pay, and there is a house on the property you and your wife could use." Nathan could barely believe what he was hearing. "A house on the property? It is not much," Thornton warned. "2 rooms need some fixing up, but it is solid and it is yours if you take the job. I need someone I can trust to run things when I am away on business. From what I hear, you are that man." "Can I talk to my wife?" Nathan asked. "Of course. Let me know by the end of the week." Nathan rode home faster than was probably safe, bursting through the door with the news. Natalie listened carefully as he explained the offer, her hands resting on her swollen belly. "It is a good opportunity," she said when he finished. "Better pay, a house. But Nathan, what about this place? My father built this house with his own hands. I do not know if I can leave it." "I know," Nathan said, sitting beside her. And I am not going to force you to decide anything. But think about it, Natalie. That mortgage is killing us. Even with both of us working ourselves ragged, we barely keep ahead of it. The ranch job would give us security, a fresh start. But I would have to leave Custer. All my memories are here. Your memories come with you, Nathan said gently. And we will be making new ones, better ones. Our child will grow up on that ranch with space to run and clean air to breathe and parents who are not exhausted and worried all the time. Natalie was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "You are right. I know you are right. It is just hard to let go." "We do not have to decide right this moment," Nathan told her. "Think about it. We will decide together." 3 days later, Natalie told Nathan she was ready to accept the job and move to the ranch. They sold the Zimmerman house to a young family who had just arrived in Custer, and though it hurt Natalie to watch someone else take possession of her childhood home, she held Nathan's hand tight and looked forward instead of back. The move to the Thornton Ranch happened in early April, just a few weeks before the baby was due. The house, as Thornton had warned, needed work. But Nathan saw potential in it, and he threw himself into repairs and improvements with new energy. This was his family's home now. He was going to make it a good one. The ranch itself was beautiful, situated in a valley with a creek running through it and mountains visible in the distance. There were about 200 head of cattle, a dozen horses, and 5 ranch hands who lived in a bunkhouse near the main ranch house. Thornton showed Nathan the operation, introduced him to the men, and explained what would be expected of him. "I trust you to run things fairly but firmly," Thornton said. "The men respect hard work and honesty. Give them that and you will have no trouble." Nathan took to the work naturally. Years of cowboying had taught him everything he needed to know about managing cattle and horses, and his father's carpentry skills came in handy for the endless maintenance a ranch required. The ranch hands accepted him quickly once they saw he was not afraid to work alongside them, and that his orders were always reasonable. Natalie settled into the little house, making it a home with curtains she sewed and meals that filled it with good smells. She planted a small garden, started befriending the wives of the other ranch workers, and prepared for the baby's arrival. On May 7th, 1883, after a long, difficult labor that scared Nathan more than anything he had ever experienced, Natalie gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him William, after Natalie's father, and Nathan held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," Nathan whispered, looking down at the tiny red face and the little hands that gripped his finger with surprising strength. "Natalie, he is perfect." "We made him," Natalie said, exhausted but glowing. "We made a person, Nathan, a whole new person." The first few months with baby William were exhausting in a completely different way than Nathan had ever experienced. The baby woke multiple times every night, crying to be fed or changed or simply held. Nathan took turns with Natalie, walking the floor with William, singing to him in a low voice, learning the particular needs and temperament of this small person who had changed their lives completely. But along with the exhaustion came a joy Nathan had never imagined. Watching William grow and change, seeing his first smile, hearing his first laugh. These moments were precious beyond measure. Nathan would come home from a long day working the ranch, and Natalie would hand him William, and all the tiredness would fall away. James Thornton proved to be a good employer. He paid Nathan fairly, valued his judgment, and gradually gave him more responsibility. By William's first birthday, Nathan was essentially running the entire ranch operation while Thornton focused on the business side of things, making deals with buyers and negotiating contracts. The little house expanded as Nathan added a second bedroom and a proper kitchen. He built furniture, A crib for William, a larger table, shelves for Natalie's growing collection of books. The garden flourished under Natalie's care, providing fresh vegetables through the growing season and preserved goods for the winter. They were not wealthy, not by any means. But they were comfortable, secure, happy. The desperate struggling of their first year together had given way to a life that, while still requiring hard work, no longer felt like a constant battle for survival. One evening when William was about 18 months old, Natalie and Nathan sat on the porch of their house, watching their son toddle around the yard, chasing a grasshopper with unsteady steps and delighted laughter. "You ever think about that day in the general store?" Natalie asked. "When you picked up my coin, all the time," Nathan admitted. "It seems impossible that so much could come from such a small moment." "I knew then," Natalie said. "Not that I loved you, not yet, but I knew there was something about you, something good and true. I wanted to know more." "I was so hungry that day I could barely think straight," Nathan said. "And then you walked in and you were kind to me, and it felt like maybe the world was not completely cruel after all. Do you remember what you said to me when I offered you work? When I said I could pay you in meals and whatever small amount I could spare, I said I would be grateful for the work." "You meant it," Natalie said. "You were genuinely grateful, not resentful, not proud, just grateful. That is when I started falling in love with you, I think." Nathan reached over and took her hand. "I had nothing to offer you. I still remember trying to tell you that, trying to make you understand that I was just a broke cowboy with no prospects. And I remember telling you that your heart was the only wealth I needed." Natalie squeezed his hand. "Do you know what? I was right. Everything we have built, everything we are, it all started with that. Your good heart. Your willingness to work hard, to be honest, to stand by me no matter what. We built it together," Nathan said. "I could not have done any of this without you." "Maybe that is the point," Natalie mused. "Neither of us could have done it alone, but together we can do anything." William chose that moment to fall down in the grass, and both parents started to get up. But the toddler simply laughed and pushed himself back to his feet, continuing his pursuit of the grasshopper. They settled back into their chairs, smiling at their son's resilience. "He has your determination," Nathan observed. "And your kind heart," Natalie replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Nathan thought about the long journey that had brought him here, from desperate poverty to this moment of peace and contentment. He thought about all the times he had wanted to give up, to just move on to the next town and try his luck elsewhere. If he had done that, he never would have been in Henderson's store that day. He never would have met Natalie. Life was strange that way, Nathan reflected. You never knew which moments would turn out to be the important ones, the ones that changed everything. A dropped coin, a fence that needed fixing, small things that led to everything. Time passed as it always does. William grew from a toddler into a boy, energetic and curious and full of questions. Nathan taught him to ride, to care for animals, to work with his hands. Natalie taught him to read and write, to be kind, to see the worth in all people regardless of their circumstances. When William was 4, Natalie gave birth again, this time to twin girls they named Grace and Rose. The house expanded again, another room added, more furniture built. The ranch continued to prosper under Nathan's management, and Thornton rewarded his hard work with regular raises and bonuses. By the time William was 10, Nathan and Natalie had saved enough money to buy a small piece of land adjacent to the Thornton ranch. Thornton, who was getting older and thinking about retirement, offered to sell Nathan a partnership in the ranch itself. "You have been running this place for years," Thornton told him. "You deserve to own part of it. I am proposing a 50-50 split. You continue managing the day-to-day, I handle the business side, and we both prosper." It was an offer Nathan never could have dreamed of in those early desperate days. He and Natalie discussed it long into the night, weighing the risks and opportunities. In the end, they decided to accept. Nathan became a partner in the Thornton Ranch, a landowner, a man of substance in the community. But success did not change who Nathan was at his core. He still worked alongside his ranch hands, still believed in treating people fairly regardless of their station. When he saw men in Custer who reminded him of who he used to be, broke and desperate and hungry, he found ways to help them. Sometimes it was a job, sometimes just a meal and a kind word. But he never forgot what it felt like to have nothing, and he was determined to be the kind of person who made things better for others when he could. Natalie continued her work too, though she no longer had to take in sewing for money. Instead, she taught reading and writing to ranch families' children, started a lending library in Custer, and became known throughout the region for her kindness and her commitment to helping others. Their children grew up knowing they were loved, knowing the story of how their parents met and fell in love when they had nothing but each other. Nathan wrote it all down in the journal Natalie had given him that first Christmas, adding to it over the years, creating a record of their family's history. One evening many years later, when Nathan was in his 40s and his hair was starting to show gray at the temples, he and Natalie took a rare evening to themselves. The children were staying with friends, and the house was quiet. They sat together on the porch they had built together, watching the sun set over land they now owned together. "You ever wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently?" Natalie asked. "If I had not dropped that coin, or if you had not been in the store that day?" "Sometimes," Nathan admitted. "But then I remember what you told me once, about how neither of us could have done this alone, but together we could do anything. I think that is true about life in general. The right people find each other when they need to." "I needed you," Natalie said softly. "I was so tired, so scared about the future, and then you came along and suddenly I was not alone anymore. I needed you too. I had given up hope, really given up, and you saw something in me worth believing in." "Your heart," Natalie said. "I saw your good heart and I knew that was what mattered. Everything else we could figure out, but a good heart, that is not something you can build or buy, either you have it or you do not." "Best decision I ever made was picking up that coin," Nathan said, smiling at the memory. "Best decision I ever made was hiring a broke cowboy to fix my fence," Natalie countered. They sat together as the stars came out one by one, the same stars that had watched over them all those years ago when Nathan had nothing and Natalie took a chance on him. The same stars that had seen them struggle and fight and build a life together out of love and determination, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. William, now a young man of 20, came to his father one day with news. He had fallen in love with a girl from a neighboring ranch and he wanted to marry her. "Does she love you?" Nathan asked. "She says she does. But Pa, her father, does not approve. He says I am too young, that I do not have enough saved up yet, that I need to prove myself first." Nathan smiled, remembering a similar conversation from long ago. "And what do you say to that?" "I say I will work hard, I will save every penny, I will prove to him that I am worthy of his daughter. But Pa, it is hard. I feel like nothing I do is good enough. Let me tell you something, son. When I married your mother, I had $4 to my name and nothing else. No land, no prospects, no future anyone could see. But I had a good heart and I was willing to work hard, and your mother saw that was enough. Everything else we built together. But what if it is not enough? What if he never approves? Then you and this young woman have a choice to make. But if she really loves you, if you really love her, then you will find a way. Love does not require wealth, William. It requires commitment and honesty and a willingness to stand together no matter what comes. William took his father's advice to heart. He continued courting the girl, proved his worth through hard work and dedication, and eventually won over her father. They married the following spring, and Nathan stood up as his son's best man, watching William make the same promises he had made to Natalie all those years ago. The twins, Grace and Rose, grew up strong and independent like their mother. Grace became a teacher, opening a school in Custer that served children from all the surrounding ranches and farms. Rose fell in love with medicine after watching the local doctor save a ranch hand's life, and she apprenticed with him, learning everything she could. She eventually went east to medical college, one of the first women in the region to do so, and returned as Dr. Rose Irons, dedicating her life to serving the community. Nathan and Natalie watched their children grow and flourish, and they were proud. But more than pride, they felt gratitude. Gratitude for that chance meeting in Henderson's store, for the courage to love when it would have been easier not to, for every hard day and every beautiful moment that had brought them to this place. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren, the ranch hands and their families, and half the town of Custer gathered to celebrate. There was food and music and dancing, and speeches about what Nathan and Natalie meant to the community. But the moment Nathan treasured most came late in the evening, when the party had wound down and most people had gone home. He and Natalie slipped away to the porch of that first little house they had shared, now used as a guest house since they had built a larger home nearby. 25 years, Natalie said, leaning her head on Nathan's shoulder. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like forever. It has been a good life, Nathan said. It has been a wonderful life, and it all started because I saw your heart. You saw what no one else bothered to look for, Nathan said. You saw past the poverty and the lack of prospects, and you saw me, the real me. That is what love does, Natalie said. It sees truly, not the surface things that do not matter, but the essential truth of a person. They sat together in the darkness, holding hands like they had so many times before, two people who had started with nothing and built everything that mattered. Their love story had become the stuff of local legend, told and retold as an example of what was possible when two people committed to each other completely. But for Nathan and Natalie, it was not a story or a legend. It was simply their life, lived day by day, choice by choice, always choosing each other, always choosing love. As they grew older, Nathan and Natalie became even more devoted to each other, if that was possible. They were rarely seen apart, and people in Custer spoke of them with affection and respect. The ranch continued to prosper under William's management, as Nathan gradually stepped back, spending more time with Natalie, traveling to visit their children and grandchildren, enjoying the fruits of all their years of hard work. On a warm summer evening when Nathan was 68 and Natalie was 66, they sat together on the porch of their home, watching another spectacular sunset. Nathan's hair was white now, and Natalie's was streaked with silver, but their eyes, when they looked at each other, held the same love and devotion they had always held. "You remember what you said to me that day on your father's porch?" Nathan asked, after Clayton Harwood left. "I said a lot of things that day," Natalie replied with a smile. "You said I deserved security and a good home and someone who could provide for you, and I told you I had nothing to offer. Do you remember what you said then? I said you had a good heart, and that was what mattered." "You were right," Nathan said. "Everything we built, everything we became, it all started with that. Not with money or land or prospects, but with love and commitment and faith in each other." "No regrets?" Natalie asked, though she already knew the answer. not a single one. Except maybe that I did not kiss you sooner, Nathan said with a grin. Natalie laughed, that same warm laugh that had drawn him to her all those years ago. You more than made up for it later. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. The ranch spread out before them, prosperous and peaceful. In the distance, they could see William riding in with his oldest son, teaching the boy the same skills Nathan had taught him. Lights were coming on in houses across the property, ranch families settling in for the evening. I saw your heart and said that is the only wealth I need, Natalie said softly. Do you know what? I was right. Your heart, your love, your dedication to me and our family that has been worth more than all the money in the world. We started with nothing, Nathan, but we built everything. We did, Nathan agreed. Together. Always together, Natalie confirmed. And there, on the porch of the home they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and a love that had endured through every challenge, Nathan Irons and Natalie Zimmerman sat together and watched the stars come out, just as they had done thousands of times before, just as they would do for all the years they had remaining. Their story, begun with a dropped coin and a kind word, had become the foundation for generations to come. Their children and grandchildren would tell the tale of how Nathan and Natalie met, how they fell in love when they had nothing, how they proved that the only wealth that truly matters is the wealth of the heart. And in the quiet evening air, with the crickets singing and the last light fading from the sky, two people who had started with nothing but each other held hands and knew they had everything that mattered. They had built a legacy of love, and that legacy would endure long after they were gone. Years continued to pass gently for Nathan and Natalie. They celebrated their 30th anniversary, then their 35th, surrounded by family and friends, always grateful for every day they had together. When Nathan was 72, he finally retired completely from ranch work, content to leave the operation in William's capable hands. He spent his days working in the garden with Natalie, playing with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and writing in the journal that had become volumes documenting their family's history. Natalie remained active in the community until her health began to fail in her early 70s. Even then, she continued teaching from her home, welcoming anyone who wanted to learn to read or simply hear her stories. The young people of Custer would gather on her porch on summer evenings, listening to her talk about the old days, about meeting Nathan and building their life together. The secret, she would tell them, is finding someone whose heart matches yours, not someone who can give you things or make your life easier, but someone who will stand with you through the hard times and celebrate with you through the good times. That is what matters. That is what lasts. When Natalie was 78, she fell ill with pneumonia. The doctor did what he could, and Rose came home from her practice to care for her mother, but they all knew the end was coming. Nathan sat by her bedside day and night, holding her hand, telling her stories of their life together. "Do you remember," he said one evening, his voice rough with emotion, "the day you told me you were pregnant with William? I was so scared and so happy all at the same time." "I remember," Natalie whispered, her breathing labored. "I remember everything, Nathan, every precious moment." "I love you," Nathan said, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I have loved you from that first day in the general store, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "I know," Natalie said, managing a smile, "and I love you. You gave me everything, Nathan. A beautiful life, beautiful children, all the love I could ever need. I am so grateful. I am the one who should be grateful. You took a chance on a broke cowboy who had nothing to offer." "You had everything to offer," Natalie corrected gently. "You just did not know it yet." She died peacefully 2 days later, surrounded by her family, with Nathan holding her hand and whispering words of love. The funeral was one of the largest Custer had ever seen, with people coming from all over the territory to pay their respects to a woman who had touched so many lives with her kindness and wisdom. Nathan grieved deeply, but he did not fall apart. He had promised Natalie he would take care of their family, would continue telling their story, and he intended to keep that promise. He spent his days with his children and grandchildren, finished writing the family history he had been working on, and found comfort in the knowledge that he and Natalie would be together again someday. 2 years after Natalie passed, on a clear autumn morning, Nathan Irons died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 80. His children found him with a smile on his face and Natalie's wedding picture clutched in his hand. They buried him beside Natalie on the hill overlooking the ranch, under a cottonwood tree they had planted together 40 years earlier. The legacy they left behind was more than just land and money. It was a legacy of love, of commitment, of the belief that character matters more than circumstance. Their children and grandchildren continued to tell the story of how Nathan and Natalie met, how they built a life together from nothing but love and hard work. William took over the ranch completely and expanded it further, always running it according to the principles his father had taught him. Grace's school became an institution in Custer, educating generations of children. Rose's medical practice served the community for decades, and she trained other young women to follow in her footsteps. The little house where Nathan and Natalie had started their life together was preserved as a family landmark. Their great-grandchildren would visit it, touching the furniture Nathan had built with his own hands, reading the journals he had written, learning about the remarkable love story that had started their family line. And sometimes, on summer evenings when the wind blew just right across the ranch, people swore they could see two figures sitting on the porch of that little house, holding hands and watching the sunset together, the way they had done for more than 50 years. The story of Nathan Irons and Natalie Zimmerman became part of the history of Custer, South Dakota, passed down through generations as a testament to what really matters in life. Not wealth or status or material possessions, but love, commitment, and the courage to see the worth in another person when the world looks past them. They had started with nothing but each other. And in the end, that had been everything.